1.
Welcome to Southern Sense Talk Radio with your host, the radio chick, Annie Ubelis. Join Annie on Tuesdays and Fridays at 2 p.m. Eastern Time with an open chat room full of her regulars. And yes, you can even call in. Call 917-889-3675. That's 917-889-3675 to be a part of the action on the phone line. Not able to listen live? Not a problem. You can always catch Annie, the radio chick, and Southern Sense Talk Radio podcast in archives at southern-sense.com. So sit back, relax, and enjoy Southern Sense the right way.
Ooh, 2 weeks left to election. 2 weeks and the insanity will be finally over. You're here listening to Southern Sense here on Blog Talk Radio, High Plains Media, SHR Media, The Fix FM out of Charleston, South Carolina. We're on iTunes, Streaker, Spritcher, whatever. Just check us out. Go to our website, the name of the show, put a dash in the middle, southern-sense.com. I'm your hostess with the mostest, the radio chick, Annie, along with my oh-so-intellectual and debonair co-host and author, Curtis C.S. Bennett. Good afternoon, Curtis.
Hey, Annie. How's it going today so far?
So far, so good. So far, so good. But we got a great show lined up here with two great guests that will be calling in later on. At quarter after the hour, we have Derek McCoy of Urban CURE. He'll be calling in. And after that, at the second half of the show, we're going to have returning candidate for Congress, Albert Lee Guillory. And it looks like he's doing pretty good in his race so far. So hopefully we'll help push him over the top. We got a lot to talk about today. So much is going on. We even now have more of the James O'Keefe videos that are being released, and James O'Keefe got booted off of Twitter because of these videos. Can you imagine that? God, it is so much going on.
And I hear that Obama did have contact with Hillary on her private server. I hear a lot about that now. Mm-hmm. Where he said before he found out when the rest of us found out.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot to talk about, so much that's going on. But we got ourselves a very busy day, and hopefully we'll have a lot of fun with it. Want to welcome everyone that's listening in the studio, as well as that are up in the chat room. Please feel free to join us in the conversation. That said, each and every show is dedicated to a fallen hero. And once again, another law enforcement officer met their end of watch. Today's show is going to be dedicated to Sergeant Steve Owen of the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department in California. His end of watch was Wednesday, October 5th of this year. And that said, as I bring up the dedication music, this is from the Officer Down Memorial page, and please visit it at odmp.org. Sergeant Steve Owen was shot and killed after responding to a burglary in progress. The call was at the 3200 block of West Avenue in Lancaster, California. He was checking the rear of the apartment building when the subject emerged and shot him. The other deputy on the scene heard the shooting and ran to the rear of the building, where he found Sergeant Owen wounded. As he rendered aid, the suspect attempted to steal Sergeant Owen's patrol car, but crashed into a second patrol car as the second deputy attempted to stop him. The man then fled into a nearby home, where he took two teenagers hostage for several hours. As the SWAT team entered the apartment, the man fled, but was quickly apprehended. Sergeant Owen had served with the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department for 29 years. He is survived by his wife and 3 children. And this is from the Daily News, written by Brenda Gazer and Wes Woods. The penetrating sounds of bagpipes wailed as the flag-draped casket of Los Angeles County Sheriff Sergeant Stephen C. Owen, who was fatally shot in the line of duty October 5th, was escorted into the Lancaster Baptist Church for a memorial that celebrated a life well lived. Thousands of law enforcement personnel, family, friends, and dignitaries from around the nation came to Lancaster Church to pay their respects to the 29-year Sheriff Department veteran, who was remembered as a tireless patrol deputy, a consummate sergeant, a devout Christian, and true family man. Los Angeles County Sheriff Jim McDonnell said the 53-year-old Owen, who was affectionately known as Bullfrog, the God Frog, or the Frog Father, was always and will always be larger than life, and had the capacity to serve others that knew no bounds. He fed the hungry. He clothed those who needed it. And Stephen Owen comforted the traumatized. Yet Steve was a hard-working street cop, McDonald said. Taking a bad guy to jail was his motto. That was his way of making the community a little safer for everyone else. Rather than seeking numbers of arrests or citations, Owen was looking to make an impact, to make a real difference for the people that he felt privileged to serve. And that he did. For nearly 3 decades, Owen, who was exceptionally good at his trade, served as both deputy and a sergeant patrolling the urban streets, hunting down predators by foot and in a radio car, and searching for missing people in remote mountain ranges or deserts on an ATV, horseback, or motorcycle, McDonald said. Does anyone remember Steve Owen just sitting in a radio car, just hanging out like everyone else, he asked rhetorically. For many in the Antelope Valley, Owen was the most well-known deputy in the area. He was famous for mentoring youth, coaching football at a local high school, and constantly thinking of and then helping those in need. Over the years, Owen, who also gave humorous nicknames to his deputies, worked his way up from patrol deputy to detective to sergeant of the Special Problems Team, known as the Lancaster Community Appreciation Program. He earned the Meritorious Conduct Medal in 2013 after safely rescuing a hostage being held at gunpoint, McDonald said. As one deputy put it, "We knew if Sarge was in charge, everything would be okay." The procession to Lancaster Baptist Church. Some 65 different law enforcement agencies were represented, with some coming from as far away as New York City, Miami, and Phoenix. Governor Jerry Brown, Attorney General Kamala Harris, and Los Angeles County District Attorney Jackie Lacey were among the dignitaries in attendance. Sheriff officials could not say how many people attended the memorial, but the church, which has a capacity of 2,500, was filled, as was a nearby overflow gymnasium. Steve was a man's man. He was a cop's cop. He knew his tactics. He was a great investigator and a great leader who influenced the lives of many in this community and throughout this region, said Lancaster Baptist Church pastor Paul Chappelle, who presided over the service. He loved his Lord, he loved his family, he loved his community, and he will truly be missed by everyone who knew him. Los Angeles County Sheriff's Captain Pat Nelson, the unit commander, couldn't find the words to express the loss his officers have suffered. Sheriff officials say Owen was shot 5 times in a calculated execution by a 27-year-old parolee, Trenton Trayvon Lavelle, after he responded to a burglary call. But it's easy to see today that sacrifice wasn't in vain, Nelson said. The level of support and the outpouring in our community is unlike anything I've witnessed in my 33 years with the Sheriff Department. Steve will not be forgotten. Today's show is dedicated to Sergeant Steve Owen. It is also dedicated to all the brave men and women out there who protect and serve every day, who put their uniforms on and selfishly protect and serve. It is also dedicated to all the brave men and women in the military, to those that have served, who are serving, and to those who will serve. We dedicate this show, And as soon as I can get BTR from stopping messing around with me, I'll play the dedication music, which it is not going to do. Oh, come on. I can't believe it. I cannot get this. There we go. Got it. This is Dave Bray, Last Call. Is this Derek?
It sure is.
All right, Derek. As soon as the dedication music is over, I'll have you on live, okay?
Absolutely. No problem at all.
Fantastic.
Great to be with you. Tell her I'm sorry. That I can't be the man that she's gonna be. Tell her I'll be waiting where the winter will fall. This is my last call. Tell my children that I love them. Oh yeah, the daddy always loved them so. Tell them to hold the mother's side and to never let it go. Tell them I'll always be watching, looking over them through it all. This is my last call.
Last Call, and you can find that at davebrayusa.com. And we're back. You're here listening to Southern Sense here on Blog Talk Radio, High Plains Media, SHR Media, the Fix FM, Connecticut Hi-Fi out of Charleston, South Carolina. Oh, just go to our website. Check us out. It's the name of the show. Put a dash in the middle, southern-sense.com. I'm your hostess with the mostest, the radio chick, Annie, along with my co-host, Curtis C.S. Bennett. Also check out his website, theoriginalradicals.com. Curtis, we got a great guest sitting in on the line. Shall we bring him on?
I'm ready.
All right. Also want to welcome everyone that's up in the chat room and listening in the studio. If you want to join in the conversation, please remember to press 1, and we'll know that you're raising your hand and bring you in. Let's welcome aboard Reverend Derek McCoy, returning to our show. He's with urbancure.org. Good afternoon, Derek.
Good afternoon. It is great to be with you as always. Appreciate you having me.
It is so much fun. You know, even though it's like trying to find Star Parker like a needle in a haystack to get her back on the show, but we're happy with you. that girl is in so many different directions. Good Lord.
Well, I'm glad I could fit the bill for the moment.
You're the cheap date.
There you go.
I mean, it's got 2 weeks left until this election cycle is over, and I think everyone's having a emotional and intellectual meltdown at this point. What are you getting?
I love that question, emotional meltdown. I think probably a little bit more of the same. I think we are finding, people across the aisle and across the country are, their hands are on their head, they're perplexed, and they're saying, what in the world is going on? But I think it's one of those things that it has shown us, it has been clear evidence to us to say, hey, you know what? This is a wake-up call for America, a wake-up call for a lot of people, because, how did we get here is a great question. If you look at from, the Republican candidate, we have, how many candidates did we go through? I think when we started it was 16. And so if you look now, and we're down to this one, and hear me, it is who we have. I just heard the deal of, even with the guy who I really like is Pence, coming on and just trying to say, hey, can we unify this? Can we get you guys to come home? And I look at it and say, you know what? They did in the CNN interview or debate a little bit ago, when they asked the question right after that debate, and the two vice presidents were up, and they said, how many would like the vice presidential candidates to be at the top of the ticket? Just about everybody in that focus room raised their hand. So
it's
an interesting dilemma we're in.
That says a lot. And I love Mike Pence. He comes out there, he's like that father figure that's saying, hey, listen, kids, settle down. Let's get back to good manners. And that's what he's like. He's that father figure that you just say, that is presidential. But he
is. He reeks of presidential. Yes.
And somebody asked the question, when you go to the polls to vote, ask yourself, if the president should be incapacitated for whatever reason, who do you want to see as vice president stepping into the role of president? And just about every one of them says, well, there's no way I want Kane to be president. I'd rather see Pence be president. That says a lot.
Oh, it really does. I mean, think about it. I mean, just how they handled themselves, not only at the debate, but really the record of Mike Pence, what he stands for, what he believes, how he articulates it, the stature that he has. I think he's a phenomenal guy personally, that I do know him. And also I think from a, sheer presidential standpoint, I mean, that is the guy that you would want to sit in the seat. And some people are wondering, said, man, why wasn't he in the mix of those? And I don't think it would have made a big difference if he was in the mix of that early presidential side of, when everybody was running in the primaries. But I think he stands tall and clear amongst a lot of people and a lot of folks that are looking and saying, wow, you know what, if something were to happen, and I think everybody needs to think about this, if they're going out to vote and they say, well, this is just a wash, well, let me help you understand. As we always say, even on the church front, life is not guaranteed, and anything can happen tomorrow. And so if something were to happen, who's the next person? What's that succession plan? And who's the next people going to fill the shoes? I think a lot of us would love to have Mike Pence as that president who can really take control and have command and really move us forward as a country.
That is so true. That is so true. You know, as I was preparing for the show, I've actually pulled up your website, urbancure.org, and I was on it last night making notes and everything. And for some reason, about 10 minutes before going on air, I go to pull it up, and your website was down. Are you guys working on it or something? Because now it's back up.
It is back up, and you know what? You guys alerted us to it, so I really appreciate that. We looked at our tweet and said, "Oh my goodness, what's going on?" So you know, earlier this morning I was on with our web folks, but we weren't planning on taking it down or doing anything like that. So don't know why it went down at all. Have no clue. And so, but we're investigating. We'll figure that out. And but that's not a normal for us. We normally have it up and running, and it's doing good. And we've got a refresh that we just did, and we're working on refresh number 2. So we appreciate you logging in to us.
Boy,
but you know, as you just talked about earlier, technical difficulties are always out there, right?
Absolutely. But it's amazing. I didn't think anyone ever read any of my tweets. So for me, that's the first time someone actually read one of them.
We got that one.
Oh,
as soon as that came through, I said, "Oh my goodness, thank you." So, I guess that's an advertisement for Twitter today.
Oh, that means that now people should start following me on Twitter, because actually people do read my tweets. All 50 followers.
There you go. Now, look at how fast the response time was off of Twitter.
Yeah. Now I got a question, because you're in the D.C. area. Have you been to the new African American Museum?
You know what? I have not. I've been around it. Have not been in it. I have tickets for November 14th, I believe it is. And so I'm waiting my turn just like everybody else, and it has been packed. The response has been really good, but I haven't gone in yet, so I wish I could give commentary on it. I'm excited to go in. I want to really see it. I've heard a ton about it, and I've had people that I know that have gone in, really impressed. I hear you could spend 3 days in there just alone in that one museum. So it's quite something else. There's another museum around the corner, Museum of the Bible, that is set to open up next November, that I've been able to watch get built and been on a couple of tours there as well, which is going to be exciting as well. So, I mean, this city, you know, within the next year, if you come in to town, that's one. You got there's so much to do here in D.C., but that Museum of the Bible is going to be phenomenal, just like the African American Museum.
Yeah, because I also heard in that museum they gave Clarence Thomas a place in there, but not as a black conservative, but as the scandal. So I'm wondering if there's some pressure brought onto the curators there to give equal time to the conservative Republican message that actually brought about abolition.
You know what? That is so true. I think what's going to happen is, now that it's open and now people are getting a view, once we get able to get in there, because there's a couple of things I have question on before I even go in that I've heard about. And so that you just pointed out one of those major glaring issues that is an injustice. And so if that's the case, and you know, we can get in there and actually see the exhibit for ourselves, I agree wholeheartedly. We participated in a thing last year where there was a bust of Margaret Sanger in one of the museums right down this road down here, and we protested that and talked to them about removing that exhibit, and they were putting that exhibit with the African American, many of them in that museum. But it was one of those things with Clarence Thomas. I mean, come on, this is one of those things where it's just not right, period. And if you're going to put somebody in there that is due honor, due dignity, is an African-American Supreme Court justice. Oh, by the way, you know, the only one we've had since Thurgood Marshall. I think it is due proper to make sure that we, you know, give him his place and due. And I think that's just how this stuff is slanted. And that's where it's going to take action from folks like you and I and citizens around and really looking at it and making a statement about it. But hear me, a statement will be made. I can guarantee you that. And we have people that are coming through. As soon as we get verified information on this stuff, we have contingency, some of our guys in our network and folks that are around that we have already planned a trip for. We're looking forward to having them here. And, that's one of those things that we definitely want to address.
Yeah, now you
because we
mentioned...
think it's only right.
Go ahead, Curtis.
And my understanding is that with Clarence Thomas, they didn't focus on him, and like you said, it was about the scandal. So basically, it was about Anita Hill and her perspective on Clarence Thomas. Now, I also understand there were other notable conservatives that they failed to recognize, and they were asked about that, and their response was, well, we can't put everybody, we don't have space for everybody right now. So that was the excuse. So I was like the good Reverend, these things will be noted and addressed, that they will have to be, because there's a lot of people that's being ignored on the right.
Oh, absolutely, and that is an injustice by itself. And so we're going to selectively overlook the one that we don't necessarily like. I mean, who gets that say? And I think that's an injustice, because you think about it this way: when you have a museum and you are putting that museum in honor of the African American heritage and the work that so many people have done, and you have kids coming in here from all walks of life, and they're seeing these honored figures, and you're going to it's just like they're doing in some of our schools. They're rewriting history by taking things out of the history book. And so, we're going to rewrite the history in the museum and take things out of the history book here and say, no, he's really not that important. Or let's put it from this one scandal piece of Anita Hill, which, by the way, there's a whole lot of issues around that. That's a program probably by itself, or if you just break that one issue down. But here's a Supreme Court justice who was so frustrated by the time he got in that he has vowed to take his job seriously. He has vowed to do what's right. He hadn't vowed to be run his mouth, keep talking. He is not the as many people miss the recent passing Justice Scalia in terms of vibrato, but he is, he's a guy who should be well respected and is due a place, and I think it's only right. So it's one of the things we really have to look at, and I think it's a twisting of our culture and a twisting of the history.
Yeah, it is. Now, we've got, as I mentioned earlier, 2 more weeks before Election Day, and we've got one after another coming out from Project Veritas, James O'Keefe, videos showing how the polls are being skewed, how voter registration is being fraudulent, one after another, and yet I hear nothing from this administration saying we're going to investigate these irregularities. We don't hear anything from mainstream media except from Fox News. How do we turn around and give the alarm out there and say, people, your vote is being stolen? Let's get this fixed before the 8th.
Woo, you touched on a hot button there. It really is a hot button. And hear me, I think it's interesting because I think, the way maybe Donald Trump brought it up initially, in the midst of the flurry of all the other issues that he keeps trying to attack one after the other, which I think is, there is some justification to a scheme in that direction. But, I think people around the country understand that voter fraud is real and that voter issues are there. And let me give you my own experience. I ran a campaign a few years back in a statewide campaign, and it was an initiative campaign, and so we did it from scratch. We had to get our signatures on the ballot to get the issue on the actual ballot, so we had to gather signatures, get those qualified for the Board of Elections, go to the Board of Elections. Once that's done, get everything on the actual ballot, and then run a full campaign from there all the way, and over the entire state. So quite a process. man, did I learn something. I was at everything from the inception all the way to the last day of the polls, and you see people that come in from all sorts of places and are, brought in, bussed in, shipped in, whatever else, that don't know the issue, don't have any clue about what's going on, don't really care. All they know is they're getting about, some at the polls were getting, hey, I'm getting $250 just to stand here and pass out these flyers, all the way up to the ones that are getting well over $1,000 with the hot meals and everything else included just to be at the polls. Now, hear me, that's not the issue. But when you start going down and digging deeper in the issue and saying, where are some of these votes coming from? You go to some places, they got people on the rolls that are passed, that have long died. They're still on the rolls. They still get a voting thing. And I don't understand within the country in how we're dealing with some of these issues where, the simplicity of ID, you have to have ID to get into a movie being 17 and over. You got to have ID to just about do everything, but except go vote. So I can really name anybody who I want to name and say that's who I am and go in there and vote. We've had noted instances of people voting, even when I ran this campaign, we had people voting in other states and voting here in the same state I was in. So how do you vote in two different states? I'm questioning, and I think you're right. When you look at groups like Project Veritas and what they're trying to do in terms of their investigative side, they're trying to bring it to light, make people understand these are real issues. This is something that's really happening. This is the stuff that's going on, and so people have to wake up and say, "Hey, we have to do stuff." And I think that's where the groundswell has to come from the public, the citizens, and say we have to make sure that we are engaged in this process and don't want to see fraud, don't want to see fallacy, want to see things that were done with integrity. And I don't think it's this whole, I'm about fed up and stuff is over my head in terms of saying, well, this whole voter fraud only goes to minority communities. That's just simply not true. Voter fraud is rampant and real all over the place, and it's not a targeted issue. And you can't say, "Well, I'm targeting it" if I'm asking folks in minority communities to come up with ID because they can't come up with one. Well, they can come up with one to do anything else. And I said that's just level one of how we need to deal with voter fraud in my thought.
Yeah,
so I can keep talking, though, but, that's just my thought.
Well, now, you're also hearing now that they're going into senior citizen centers, nursing homes. They're going after those that are disabled or elderly, their caregivers, and saying, hey, you get a hold of the absentee ballot, and this is how you're going to fill out the absentee ballot for that person, and then send it in. So that individual...
Absolutely.
So if I were in a nursing home and I was in a coma or whatever, suddenly I would have my vote being processed. But I didn't vote because I can't vote.
Yes.
And this is really scary because you've got, 50% of our population is over the age of 50? How many people do we have in nursing homes? How many do we have that are at stay at home with home care and then having their vote abused? Stolen. Shouldn't say abused, stolen, criminally stolen.
Well, I mean, it's a part of the abuse of senior citizens around our country now, because we already know that, in some senior citizens' homes, there's already tough conditions. But when you're talking about people get the opportunity to come into their place, and I've seen these guys. I know some of these folks that, hey, not only do they bus them, but now they're trying to get they're now taking a step further. They used to go in, get all the senior citizens, rally them up, and just bus them to the poll. And what they tell them is that when they're going in, they say, "I'm going to take you over here, and I'm going to take you to the poll. But here's what I'm going to do. Not only am I going to give you a warm meal, we're going to feed you really good, I just need you to vote just like this." So they tell them exactly how to vote, and it's basically bribery for the vote. So I think that's fraud, but they're bribing the people to come out of their homes, come out of these senior citizen homes, bringing them with transportation, feeding them whatever they want to eat, and then bringing them to the poll. Now, some say, well, that's okay. But if you think about it, some of these folks are on fixed incomes and everything else, and so that is a form of bribery to get a vote, and they're telling them and directing them of how to vote. Now you go to a place where people are in comas, they're they're incapacitated, they have physical issues, they just can't do it. And even from a mental standpoint, we have, mental challenges all across that country, but amazingly enough, some of them are voting. and some of them are voting for the candidate of their choice, amazingly. And I'm saying that sarcastically because I know we're on radio, but it's one of those things that people need to understand. I mean, all of a sudden, folks that are incapacitated don't have the wherewithal to appropriately assess who should I do this for, who should I be voting. I mean, it's just not right. I mean, and then that's another area again where people are really taking advantage of, and like you're saying, it's stealing. It is absolutely stealing. It would be the same, if I had elderly parents and they were incapacitated, and I go over as their son, get the absentee ballot, fill it out for them, and just say this is where they're going to vote today, because I want them to vote this way. Well, I still just stole from my parents. That's not right.
Yeah, it isn't.
That's
right.
how I think about it.
Yeah, and no one. And the only one that's saying anything about it, and the only one that's exposing it, is Donald Trump and James O'Keefe. James O'Keefe organization is fantastic.
Right.
And you mentioned Twitter earlier.
Yeah.
Twitter has kicked James O'Keefe off. He cannot access his account because of those videos, because they are exposing the criminal acts of the other side. So instead of getting an award and saying, hey, thank you for exposing it, thank you for helping try to make our system a little bit more honest, nope, he gets slapped in the face and says, you can't access your account, you can't do anything. Bye, you're out of here. And that's not right.
Isn't that something?
We've got our social networks.
That isn't right.
Yeah, Facebook. How many times have I gotten shut out of Facebook because I posted something that they thought that, oh, no, that's going to insult or bother anyone. And anyone that knows what I put on Facebook is so innocuous, outside the titles of the shows. But if someone like me can get blocked, imagine what they're doing now to James O'Keefe putting his YouTube videos up. He had to turn around and create his own server to help protect his videos, because YouTube was taking him down. And if we can't get the word out, then we can't educate the public. And if the public is not educated, they cannot make a good, sane vote. It's a big round robin. You like the way I brought that all around?
See? Yeah, I do. I mean, and that's absolutely true. That's true. I wish I could almost combat you and say, no, that's not true. That's not right. But what we have is we have a system that's broken. We have a system that is hemorrhaging, and sometimes what's happening, this election is so interesting. And like you said, we're only a couple of weeks away, but this election is really interesting because we have folks, and when Donald Trump is bringing stuff to attention, let me just say it like this. If you're running a marketing campaign, if you're running a PR campaign, on the other side, they're doing this well. They are throwing so many issues at one time to one candidate that it's almost hard to get his voice above the water on real key issues, i.e. voter fraud, i.e. Other issues that he's really bringing out, like Obama, the Obamacare currently, with the escalated cost of health care and escalated cost of, our monthlies. And so, that's a real issue. You're also looking at the voter fraud is a real issue. You also there's several real issues. I mean, you got the blatant distrust from the public on Hillary Clinton because of so many of her email issues. But if you look at it from that perspective, and again, I'm just giving you an analyst as a guy who's a citizen in the country and just looking at this from my perspective, and even how we're talking about this from a CURE standpoint, and I can talk about that in a moment. But when you're looking at things like this, they are throwing so many issues at them that the public can't really hear all of the things that are really key, and it's not bringing issues. They're saying, "Oh, wow, that's just a lot of stuff." As you note already, in the polls that they've already done for the people that are going out, and they were interviewing a lot of people. Why did you go out and vote so early? Why did you go to early voting? Because they got lines at early voting, and they're just saying, "I just want to get it over with. I just want to get it over with." And so people they're doing a good job on that side of it. Now, the truth of the matter, though, is that these issues are going on. You have, like I said, when I ran the state campaign, you wouldn't believe we had one of the people who needed to vote, and this was in this, the governor of the state was trying to medevac them from the hospital to come in and cast their votes. So you're looking at, again, this is all around the voter concept, and you're thinking, this person's incapacitated in the hospital. The person's husband had to intervene and say, look, we're not doing that. And now I don't understand a governor of a state saying he wants to spend state money to get a helicopter to medevac you to go vote. That was mind-boggling to me, but that was actually true, and it actually really did happen. And but in any of itself, I think that's one of those things that are just not right from a voting standpoint. But if you look at the countless issues that Veritas has already done in terms of, getting ID for voting, I mean, it's just true. And, people on the other side of this and trying to argue that this doesn't exist, I don't know what planet they live on, and definitely I'm not sure what country that they're living in. But in the good old US of A, America, right now we have blatant voter fraud going on, and that's one of those things that are really concerning. And I think that's also one of those things, now going back to, our side and CURE side, I look at it as one of those things that have really kept, communities entrenched in poverty, communities entrenched with family breakdown in so many different areas and controlled by one side of the aisle, and you have these communities that are just like this, and I think it's just, and you ask, why haven't things changed? Well, there's a strategy to keeping people down and to keeping people at a certain level, and some of those strategies are about, let's keep twisting the system and defrauding the system to make sure that there's no clear voting process here, and there's no clarity of how to get out. So I don't know if that makes sense, but it's clear with me. We really have some major issues in our country and regarding this, and I think people got to look through the weeds of it and get cut through the thick of this thing and say, hey, look, these are real issues and these are true issues, and we've asked for a candidate that does not it's not the quote unquote the status politician at all, or the status quo politician, and but he's bringing up to light in some surface issues that are, I think it's due just for everybody to be looking at.
Yeah, well, your organization, Urban Cure, that people can find at urbancure.org, works to break that cycle of poverty. You work to educate people, to encourage more faith, rather than having 15 baby daddies, enter into a marriage, have a solid family. Your organization does such good work, and you're in charge of the religious end of this. How is that going, your national network?
Oh man, I'm see, now you got me on myself that I'm really excited about. But it's just phenomenal. I think going back again to the same point that you just talked about a second ago. In terms of where our country is, we got 2 weeks away from voting. We have two candidates that really, is challenging it all the way down the line. One, we got the non-politician, Donald Trump, and then on the other side, we have absolute, almost by birth politician who's been there for years and years and years. And matter of fact, oh boy, I really want to answer the CURE question, because I was also thinking about the other side, and please forgive me for digressing, because I just happened to pick up Hannity last night, and I'm not sure if you saw that, but it was really interesting, the thing where they had, he has gone into and has the guy who was the Clinton fix-it man, and they was actually interviewing him. It's worthwhile looking at, but he did about a 35-minute segment with him on just how many things he's fixed for the Clintons and what he does. And this guy's straight up, and he came forward because he wanted to protect the other workers with him. Now he was from National Enquirer, some of these other ones that are typically touted as, that's kind of the gossip mag, but they've been dead right on so many different issues, and he has a long litany in history of just the fixes that he's been doing for both Clintons and especially Hillary for years. And so, the dishonesty is rampant on that campaign side. But to go back to my CURE side so I can stay focused, is just shows you, where our country is, and that the need for organizations, I feel like CURE, where we're Center for Urban Renewal and Education, and we operate in three different streams. We operate in policy, try to really affect policy and have a real key difference and be advisors and key elements in helping to craft, write policy, advise on it, redraft it, do whatever we can. And that's why we're here in D.C., 2 blocks away from the White House and just minutes, just blocks away as well from our representatives in terms of, elected officials in the Senate and the Congress, and then in the House. And so the other side is we also have a media venue where we want to be a voice in the public square. We believe that you don't check your citizenship at the door if you come into an encounter with your faith, you come into an encounter at your church, or whatever may be the case. You don't check your citizenship, and that we need to have a voice in the public square. And just like the issues we just talked about, and we have specific issues, but I think this is one of those unique issues, and I call it education. I'd put the Clarence Thomas issue right under education, because you're twisting the education of our future kids in terms of lying to them about what this really, what kind of person he really is in such a critical venues like the African American Museum. But other issues that we do address in the media and the public square are key issues as well. And we have to have an alternative voice out here, just like you're doing, and we so thoughtfully doing with Southern Sense, and just really championing great causes and really making sure you're exposing issues and bringing it to light. That's so critical, because the sound clips we get today are just so minimal and just a few minutes. And a lot of people don't even think about politics. And they say, well, this isn't a big deal. And we're not saying politics will not necessarily solve it, but our culture, citizens in culture can solve real issues. The political scheme of things, that doesn't necessarily do it. Now, if you aligned with one, you engage your citizenship, and you get engaged, you can make a big difference in society. From my vantage point, that's one of the reasons why our third bucket is CURE Clergy Network, and we have a national CURE Clergy Network. We have national clergy from around the country in different pockets, different states, which we're really excited about. We have some phenomenal things that we just did in our national policy summit, where we kind of infuse the two together. We bring in clergy from around the country. We bring in policy leaders and thinkers from in different spots in the country, but a lot of them are right here in D.C. And we bring them together, and we say, hey, look, let's have at it. Let's get some good dialogue going. Let's get good education going. We run them through several different segments of things that we do, and then once we do that, we are then working real hard to making sure we educate those clergy around the country. And so when we educate those clergy around the country, that's the thing that we do, because one after the other, the light bulbs go off. And I got stories after stories of just clergy really coming into the place. Like we were at our summit this only a few weeks ago, and they said, just driving home, I'm breaking down in tears, didn't really realize where we are in our country and culture, and how this really is affecting me in terms of how I see things and what my worldview is. And so we're excited about that, because we believe that's where I hope some of our greatest hope lies, right in the place where clergy live and the communities that they hit, and those hard-hit communities and what they're doing. And as we expand that, as we make a difference with that, we can really move forward. And we're excited about that in terms of how we do it. Yep.
Reverend.
Yes, sir.
Do you think many minorities are waking up because of the Trump candidacy this year?
No question. I mean, I think one of the things he's done is my man has stirred the pot, He has absolutely stirred the pot, and made people wake up and realize that, hear me. Some of the comments that he said, okay, I get why some people might be a little bit challenged with some of his comments. But I look at it and said, here's a guy, he's just a non-politician. I'm trying to tell people all the time. I said, this guy's not the polished politician. He's not going to say the politically correct thing. So he might refer to you as, the African Americans or the Hispanics or, the Germans or whatever else would be the case. But he's just not a polished guy. But what it's done on the other side, it made a lot of people engaged, made a lot of people think, made a lot of people look at some of these key issues that are happening and say, man, I need to wake up on these things. And I think with that being said, because he's not that, that normal politician that we hear, so when you got the other side talking and all of these inconsistencies, all of these just blatant lies, there's no other case in point where why would you ever have to, totally kind of burn your email server if you didn't do something that was wrong. I wouldn't do it. Most people wouldn't do it. Even if you had secret stuff on there, you say, hey, if I'm all square, I'm not doing that. But I think all of that contention on one end, and he's just addressed it and mentioned it and talked about those issues, and then trying to talk about real issues of what's going on and how he might be able to help fix some of these things. Because I think America wants somebody who's going to try and fix something, and they want somebody who's courageous and is going to be a leader. So they don't want to, let's be honest, they don't want a wimp. They don't want somebody soft. They don't want somebody who's going to guide us down this path. And I think, if this election takes the other route, we're going to get 4 more years, which means 12 years of one-sided control, which is going to be something else, I tell you. But so I think it has wakened people up. Matter of fact, I just looked at Bishop Aubrey Shines just this morning. Sent me a thing. He was speaking at the Trump rally in Florida, in Tampa, Florida, and he put out a video which I thought was phenomenal on 4 reasons why you should not trust Hillary Clinton and vote for Donald Trump, which I thought was his perspective. But it was quite something, and it's really good.
Oh, I got to check out Aubrey because he's been a guest on our show in the past, too. And I was looking to book him again. His agent sent me something, but I didn't know about the video, so I'm going to check that out. Definitely. Aubrey is a good friend of the show, too. I got good people that come on as my guests. Very rarely do I have a bad guest. So you're up there. You're one of the top 10. And, you mentioned that Trump brings up issues that no one really is talking about on the other side. And every single time he does, he ends up being proven right. He was saying the elections are rigged, and now we're proving how these elections have been rigged and how they're still attempting to rig this election. He was saying that the polls were fixed, and now he's showing exactly how those polls have been fixed. He's been proven right over and over again. He may be a little bombastic about it, but he is speaking the truth, and that's the difference. We're not hearing the truth from the other side. 1 minute she's for Wall Street, the next minute she's against them. You can't have it both ways, Hillary. Take a stand and stand on it, and then maybe someone can respect you. But I can't respect her in the least bit because she has proven to be such a criminal. And she should be behind bars, honestly, time and time again.
No question about that. And here's the true quote. If this were anybody else in our society, they would be under the jail. Under the jail.
Oh, yeah.
Not in it. Under the jail. And no hope of, getting out anytime remotely soon.
Life without parole. Send her into that solitary confinement. So that way she cannot corrupt anyone else. Make it that permanent orange jumpsuit. Oh, God. Some of the outfits, I'm not even going to get into some of these terrible outfits she's been wearing. But they're saying that the outfit she's wearing is to hide the fact that she's got different devices on her to help prompt her, to help keep her going. So, he brought up her health, and that issue has never been completely answered. And I do see a lot of callers in the studio. I just want to remind you that if you do want to ask a question, speak with our guest, Reverend Derek McCoy, please remember to place your index finger against the number 1 on your keypad and press. And that way I know you're raising your hand. There's so much we have to talk about, concerning this election cycle and what Urban CURE is doing. And one of the things I want to talk about is that you mentioned that Bible Museum is going up, and I'm starting to see, I don't know if you are, maybe a resurgence of faith in America, because we have been under attack for so long. I think people of faith are finally saying, stop it. Let's go back to our moral values. Let's go back to having a husband and a wife. Let's go back to having a child with both parents living at home, raising them together. This is something that we haven't seen in a long time. Are you seeing a resurgence?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and just like you asked about a minute ago, has he stirred the pot for African Americans getting involved? And I think, too, where are we? People have to have a moral plumb line. And what has happened in our culture that people seen, several years ago, and not that long ago, when all of us were talking about marriage, we were talking about, oh wow, the definition of marriage and this and the other, and it was plummeted, it was pushed into this thing of, oh, you're just against gays and you're just insensitive, you're just intolerant. Well, it's already proven that the most tolerant people are folks that have a religious education and understand, and come from a religious background. So those are the most tolerant. So if you're going to church and you have religious tolerance and a religious background, you're going to have the more tolerance than the other side of the aisle. But what's happening is that there's been a void that's happened in our culture because of these last 8 years. And hear me, it's not only just these 8. We've had more. We can go back even further because I look at it, one of the worst things, and I think, Reagan even admitted that. He said one of the worst decisions he ever did was put no-fault divorce in place. But the other side that we look at is looking at, quite simply, that there's been a fallout of what our baseline of values and our baseline of systems and morality is. What you're hearing one side of the aisle talk about is that we should not have any respect and value for life itself. So from birth all the way to when we are at end of life, there should really be no respect, and that our own man decisions should trump all of those decisions. And so, meaning that we should be able to take life when we feel like it, from the beginning of the womb. So if a woman gets to the point, hey, we can, and I think Donald Trump brought this up in the last debate, up to 9 months, just rip the baby right out. Now, take that fast forward and say, when somebody's old, I just heard of a case where an insurance company is willing to pay for a physician-assisted suicide, but not willing to pay for the chemotherapy drugs. Now, we're at that's a moral issue. That's not that's if we think about it, that's a moral issue right now. And we are dealing with moral issues from a life perspective. We're dealing with moral issues from how people live, from a family breakdown. I can go down piece by piece by piece. But if we start at it, family breakdown is where a lot of this happened. And I typically point back to, Daniel Patrick Moynihan from 2 years ago, when he began to talk about what these entitlement programs will do to many of the families and the breakdown of the family. But now we're looking at it, not only did that happen, but we also have people that have pushed their agenda. Interesting enough, let me share this one. If you think about it, I was reading an article not too long ago, and they were talking about Apple and how unique Apple is as a tech company and everything else. And they were comparing the CEOs from Tim Cook, the current CEO, to the former CEO, which was Steve Jobs. And they said Steve Jobs was an innovator and a technological genius. And what he did is he innovated so much so technology that it changed the exact way we think. And so what Apple was at that point was a company that was changing the way people think from a technological standpoint. And that was his influence on that company. So he was the innovator. He was the chief innovator in that company. They said Tim Cook's style is that he's going to be the chief social innovator in that company, meaning technology to him, whether they get a new iPhone or not, really doesn't matter. He wants to make sure that he's pushing his agenda, which is his social reform agenda of making sure that LGBT community and all these other folks and all of these, I call it, agendas that are lacking morality are advanced and moving forward. Now think about that dynamic from a company standpoint. This is what this guy's, from a company perspective, this is where we are. We got companies engaging in this culture war, unlike never before, and are using those dollars and cents to push this culture war. You look at people like George Soros, you look at people like Tim Cook, you look at people around this globe that are pushing these social agenda items and are really ripping the guts out of our morality in our country. And I think that's where people are, and they're seeing it. And so, like I said, a few years back, they were wondering, is this really the case? Is this just a conspiracy theory? Now they're like waking up and saying, wow, this stuff is really happening, and it's happening at such an accelerated pace and rate that it is amazing, and people are almost in disbelief that these things are happening so fast. And so we have to make sure that we are waking people up, we're engaging people, and that we are making sure that folks are pushing, that we're getting folks to push these issues and saying, hey, look, this is the time to ring the bell because our generations are at stake. Not just us, because I tell people now, this isn't even about you anymore. This isn't about what your neighbor is or what they are and where you are and what is going on in our time span. This is really about long-term generations. This is really about your grandkids, your great-grandkids, and what the legacy is going to be in this country and in this place called America and our culture. Because if you don't wake up to that, they're going to wake up to a very, very different America. At least we can go back and look and say, well, Grandma did say this. But there's a culture now called millennials that don't have a grandma that said this, or that don't have a grandfather that said X, Y, and Z, or a mom and a dad who said this. When we're at 72+% single-parent households right now in the African-American community, and every culture group behind us is following expeditiously, so Hispanics and whites, we are totally changing how this family breakdown looks. And so that's why people are waking up, because they said the way we're going ain't working. What we're doing right now is not the solution to this problem.
No, it's not. Now,
you see, I got passionate.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. You had mentioned at the start of that about you had the abortion as late as 9 months, and now they're going after the elderly. And recently we had on the show J.J. Hansen, who was a veteran, and he was diagnosed with cancer. And the insurance company told him, no, we're not going to give you those drugs, those medications, but we will help you with your end-of-life decision, he was told. Well, he was told he had less than 6 months to live. He did a little research. He and his wife fought hard. He got the treatment he needed. And 6 years later, he is healthy, happy, and leading an organization called Patients' Rights Action Fund. So if people think that what you're saying is just you talking, no, this is one individual it happened to. So if it happened to him, how many more hundreds of thousands of senior citizens are being denied care because the numbers just don't match? Hey, they're 75 years old. They're at their end of their life. They're no longer productive to society. It's about time they go out to pasture. Just leave Grandma on the ice floe, send her out there, and let her die.
See, that's a moral issue. That's an incredibly moral issue, and we don't have the right. That's what we call, that's above our pay grade. We do not have the right to determine if somebody can live or not. We do not have the right to determine. There used to be the code of ethics that every single doctor would sign, and that was a code of ethics that they would protect life at all costs, basically, in a nutshell. And that was their job, to save lives. Now we're getting into the ethics of they get to call the shots on whether we take a life or save a life. Insurance companies, based on dollars and cents, are doing it. And we talked about this from, moving to a socialistic perspective on our healthcare system. This is where we get to the place where they begin to do actuarial evaluations, meaning just looking at the lifespan that you have, that you've already lived, and just doing the numbers and basing their decision of whether they're going to let you live on the medication that you need based on just the numbers. So where's used to be a song about that. It says, where's the love? But now we're looking at where is the morality in that, and that is far beyond our pay grade as human beings. We cannot allow that to happen. I don't care how smart you are, how many degrees you've gone to school for, how intelligent you feel like you are, and what God you do or do not believe in. That is above your pay grade. You did not create yourself here, and I don't think we have ability to tell ourselves that we can, when we are supposed to die and when we're not. And I think that's a perfect example that you brought up, that this is the truth. I mean, we are, in a place now where they're telling us and looking at this and saying, oh, well, you're this age, you should be gone. There should be no hope for you. And what they're doing is extracting hope out of any real situations and saying, well, it's better off for you to be gone. That's the problem I got. There's a bill in D.C. right on the docket right now talking about, we should, physicians assisted suicide, they should be able to call their own death point. And hear me, when you have somebody who has gotten a little bit older, is struggling physically, I mean, it's a mental challenge for them because they have gone through life healthy and spry and full of their capacities and from a physical standpoint, and they have the ability to go for it. And the only thing that's changed is their physical body, but their mind is still sharp. They're still there. They're still present. Everybody you talk to understands that. And the thing that gets it is that people are making decisions of their life based on this. And so if you go through a spout where you might get depressed, so that means let's go ahead on the options now, or, well, we can assist you with death. What about the idea of maybe counseling you through it, maybe giving you some joy and talking about future, talking about other things that can give you a sense of hope and destiny? Because to me, I look at it, everybody has a glimmer of hope and they can impact somebody. So, I'm sorry, I go on that one. That's one of those ones that I get really intense on, but I think it's just so appropriate, and that is a moral issue that we're facing and a moral crisis in our country.
No, you've noticed from the left side, here they are pro-choice, all right? They have no qualms in killing an innocent child. They're pro-choice, so okay, you can kill the baby. Yet, they are against the death penalty. They're for the death penalty, not against. Oh, wait a minute, I'm getting myself backwards. They're against the death penalty. They believe that prisoner should be preserved, and then pro-choice, so you can kill the baby, but don't kill the criminal. And then you talk to them.
Don't kill the criminal. And then you can kill the elderly person, by the way, too.
You kill the innocent elderly, and you can kill the innocent baby, but don't kill the criminal. And this is where the hypocrisy from the left just rubs me raw. Life is life. And no man should have the right, unless it's in self-defense or in the defense of another person's life, that you take it. But that is a justifiable. Christ does say that is a justifiable. But he doesn't say what is justifiable is killing the unborn child. And this is where I get so angry. And what I'm seeing, too, I don't know if you're seeing it in your area, but some of these senior centers and nursing homes are now operating a daycare at the same time. So these young children are now interacting with the elderly. And that's what our society should be doing, having the elderly there to teach the young. But in today's society, it's not politically correct to do that.
But that's crazy because, this is where I've gone on even, from my own personal service and personal experience as a dad. Can't tell you how many times I did a field trip with one of my sons, and they went to, elderly homes on a veterans base and basically, in a veterans home, but elderly. And took them bowling. And you know what? It was so interesting for me because it was an education for me as a dad. I'm one of the drivers and bringing a bunch of kids there. And to see the elderly come out of their places and say, we're going to the bowling alley. And they're walking over and they're getting there. And, and they're kind of quasi talking to you a little bit. Not much. They're just like, here we go. And when those kids started interacting with those elderly, and they started doing this bowling, and they were going down, and they would bring out those assistant bowling racks and all sorts of things if people needed them, they just lit up. Mm-hmm. Just interacting with those kids, they lit them up, and they were just so excited. And I got another story. My youngest daughter going and playing violin at the elderly home. She does that multiple times a year, every year. And so, but they just light up and they just love it. And so what we're missing is, some of our Asian cultures get this. They respect their elderly and they understand their place in society, and that the wisdom of accumulated, the years of accumulated wisdom makes a difference and is significant. And we do not need to toss that away in society like it's nothing and like it's a frivolous, it's just frivolous time, and we no longer value it. And I think that's a wrong message that we send to our young people. And we need to, build into society a system of respect and just a dignity, and a dignity for human life, a dignity for this. And this is again, like you said, it's a hypocrisy. Because on one side, we don't even hear that dignity. We hear it, we want to keep the prisoner alive and we don't want the death penalty. Yet they've killed 4 people, or done some massacre of murders, but we want to keep them alive. And then we go on the other side and then we don't value just the human dignity of the respected and the folks that have been around and have earned their way in society. So I'm with you 100% on that. I think it's absolutely true.
Yeah, well, we've got a bunch of comments up in the chat room. Right now, Dave is contacting us through Kel, and he wrote, "What the heck? If nursing homes allow dogs and cats in to visit, why not kids?" That's a good question. Why not kids? Where we can have the benefit of the youth of interacting with these elderly people. And when these elderly people have interactions, if they're laughing and they're smiling, they're feeling better, they become more mentally acute, they end up having a better quality of life. Because laughter is a healing medicine.
That's right.
Our society has it bass backwards, honestly. Go ahead, Curtis. Curtis, go ahead.
Yeah, I think we need to also, I think we also need to take over the school system again and put back civics classes and understanding and respect for this country, what it stands for, our heritage, our flag, so we don't get athletes, who disrespect the flag, so we don't get Hollywood celebrities who all of a sudden become environmental experts. We need these kids to, look up to true heroes. And we have plenty of them, in our country.
Well, yeah, we do have plenty of heroes. And Sue was sending me a text. She sent me a link that we were talking earlier about the news reports and polls being skewed. It's now coming to light, someone's exposing this, that 65 major media personalities are on the direct payroll of Hillary Clinton's campaign. So you wonder why this information is not getting out there when the reporters are submitting their reports, their articles to Hillary Clinton's campaign to be proofed and to be approved. Something's wrong here. I thought the media is supposed to be independent. They are supposed to be fair and independent, but it's proving to be exactly the opposite. So I want to thank Sue for sending that out to me. If I can, I'll try to get it up in Facebook later on today. So I'm holding on to that link, Sue. Thank you. And we've got a lot in the chat room.
Tweet that out.
Yeah. We'll send that one out. I'll have my Twitter account knocked out again. But Dave wrote, "What are Never Trump terrestrial radio people doing now? Interviewing independent presidential candidates and telling us we should believe the polls." And this is what is wrong with this election cycle. I've never seen so much propaganda coming from the media. And that's what it is. And how are people supposed to make an educated vote unless there's someone like you, Derek, or me, or Curtis, that actually research, look, and read, and verify? If you are relying on Twitter on 140 characters or less, how are you going to understand what the truth is?
That's true.
Right.
Oh, man.
They're not interested
that is really true.
What was that, Curtis? Curtis?
Some people aren't interested in the truth.
No, they want to know. They want to just someone tell them what to think. But that again is why your organization, Urban CURE, is so great, because you do educate people. You do tell them the importance of rising above poverty, of intermingling with everyone. That we are a melting pot. We're not multicultural. We're a melting pot. And unfortunately, the left is trying to force us to be divisive. And an organization like yours, Urban CURE, and working through the clergy, is a one strong way to unite us all with a common message.
Well, we really believe it is, and it's one of those things that have been really successful. And again, I could give you stories. I remember having one of a bishop here not too long ago, and we were sitting in the round table. We did a whole day's activity, going through talking about real issues, and they're in an issue. They're in a community which is trapped in poverty. You definitely call it a hard-hit community. And, 65 years of Democrat control. And so you say, okay, you had 65 years of Democrat control. Now, and before he got here, I said, hey, I want you to come to this meeting. I want to talk to you. He said, well, and he laughed at me. He said, Derek, I don't know. I'm not that. He said, I don't know if I'm that conservative a guy. I know who you are. I said, no, I just need you to have an open mind, open heart. He said, all right, I can do that. So he comes. And he spends his time with us. And he says at the end, he pulls me to the side and he says, you know what, I need to tell you this. I didn't really understand. I was as conservative as I am. He says, now I get it. I understand what you're talking about. And so the light bulb goes off. And here's another person who can now go to his congregation, which is over 2,000 people, and begin to talk to them about these issues and to begin to educate them appropriately. He says, look, I'm dealing every day with, moms who don't have what they need to go forward in terms of, the right jobs or the right income level. They're trapped in welfare programs. They're just, they're hurting. You got people on addictions. You got people on all these different issues that they're having. And so he's like, hey, look, he's wearing so many hats as a local pastor that he's trying to figure out, how do I prioritize and what do I do? And I said, one of the things that we do from our Urban CURE program, we're a service organization. We serve. That's our whole deal, is that we come alongside and we serve them with information, we serve them with education, we serve them with connections, programs, and things that actually work and are proven to get them out of the cycle that they're already in, because they already know what doesn't work. They're in hard-hit communities. They've got 65 years of control on one side of the aisle, and you're saying, okay, don't patronize. Because really what you're doing is you're telling elected officials are coming in and patronizing them because they're saying, we're going to change this up. Well, let me help you understand. Same people come in office over and over again, 65 years, same rule, no other influence. Why has it not been changed? Because you're going along to get along and you're doing the same exact program. You can walk down the streets and there's crime, there's drug infestation, there's gangs, there's everything else. And so when you look at it, and people hated Donald when he's saying, man, have you seen some of our cities? They're like war zones. And people got offended. And I'm not sure. I'm trying to figure out. There's nothing to be offended about. He's basically telling the truth in some areas. Because I look at them, they're like war zones. I look at them and say, tell my wife, don't you dare go there at nighttime. Don't you dare go there after it's dark. Tell my kids, make sure you're not in that neighborhood at this point. Because I wouldn't be doing my job as a dad protecting them if I said, oh yeah, just go ahead and wander around. Just walk around when you're free. No. If you can't do that on the street that we live in America and in a major populous city, then we do have like war zones, and we do have areas. Now, the way he said it, it could be insensitive, but the truth hurts sometimes, and the truth is the truth. And I think what he's stirring the pot on, just like I said earlier, is that we have to deal with these issues, the issues of devastation in the family, the issues of devastation in our economic conditions across the board, the issues of not practicing free market principles and applying free market principles to our culture and to our communities have devastated us. When you go in those communities and people wave the flag and say, hey, I want to raise you to $10 minimum wage, now we're going to raise you to $15 minimum wage, that sounds wonderful to the people in the communities. Oh, man, I'm going to get more money. Yeah, okay, to the business leaders said, okay, no problem. What I'm going to do is either put in automation or I'm closing down the shop at these locations that are not providing a profit. So therefore, my job leaves. So it's clear. But if you don't create some incentives, you don't create another game plan, we're going to get the same stuff that we've been getting. And so from morality to economics, it's all there. You look at somebody who supports life, I can show you somebody who supports the right economic plan. You could look at somebody who tears down life, I'll show you somebody who does not care one bit about growth and economic development.
Now, that is a heck of a lot you just said there, because they're showing that when the pro-life movement is suppressed and we do end up with a baby boom, you do see the economy just blossom, because now you've got more consumers out there. And this is what we need. We need to revere life. And as you say, if you find a neighborhood where life is revered, you find a prosperous neighborhood. You find a neighborhood with faith is supported. You find a prosperous neighborhood. And if they tear down our faith, they also tear down our family. And they tear down our family, they tear down all of society, and anarchy reigns. And if that's what you want, anarchy, then where are you going to turn when you are the one that's mugged in the street? Who are you going to turn to?
That's right.
To enforce the laws so that you can walk safely down the street? But no, the left would rather see us devolve into anarchy. And this is what this election cycle is about preserving our republic. Not a democracy, the republic, the rule of law. But then again, we've got someone running for president that completely ignores the rule of law. And that's what our society is delved into.
We do.
And we can't allow that to happen. And that Never Trump crowd that out there, I just hope they do not succeed in helping to elect Hillary, because our nation will not survive her. I'm telling you that now. That's my prediction. Our nation would be over.
Wow. Well, that's what, I wonder what they say in Never Trump. It's what you're saying is always Hillary.
Yes.
That's the only thing you're saying.
And we've got Kel that is asking a question. Will Trump advocate small government? Donald Trump is advocating small government. He already said that he wants to go in there and slice and dice a lot of agencies out of there.
I think one of the things about it, one of the things they got to look at with Trump is look at the people that he amasses around him. Whether you like him or not, doesn't make a difference. This isn't a personality contest, and maybe we need to get out of personality contests. This is about, here's a guy who can really, he does understand GDP, he does understand economics, he does understand how to do business. So I give him props for that. Do I like everything? No, but you don't worry about every single thing. I'm not trying to elect a pastor. I'm trying to elect a president. And the deal is, if you look at it, you're trying to figure out, do you think this guy has a reasonable perspective of how he's going to go about the economic opportunities? And then also, like you said, trimming down government, limiting government, dealing with the tax issues, dealing with the deficit issues. There's a lot on the plate. And I think this is a guy who has proven to be smart in that regards. And also a guy he knows the system. And he knows how broken our system is. And I think he has, be honest, sometimes if you know how broke the system is, you got the best possibility of fixing it.
Yes, he's worked the system, so he knows how it works, and he knows what's wrong with it.
Yep.
So, hey.
He's played both sides of the field. Yeah. He's played both sides of the aisle before. And
he has.
It is true. This guy has built businesses, and that's what we need in America right now. We need businesses. We need to have an economic boom or renaissance, because, we keep going like this. I don't think we're going to last another election term.
Yep. Man, like I said, I've never seen an election cycle like this in all my years, and my first vote was for Ronald Reagan. Unfortunately, hey, jeez, like I said, I can't understand how we have allowed ourselves to get this far down, but it's because it was apathy. We were so busy, doing our own stuff, we just didn't pay attention.
Yeah.
And now it's gotten to the point where everyone is having a humongous wake-up call. And I think on November 9th, there's going to be a lot of people waking up with a huge hangover. That's for sure. That is for sure.
No question. No question.
And you notice that everyone keeps on trying to pull the race card with Donald Trump, but time and time again, he is the one that's going into the minority neighborhoods and asking for their votes. You don't see the Clinton campaign doing that, do you?
Don't have to ask for something you take for granted. Yep. You don't have to. It is what it is. You don't have to ask for something you take for granted. You already know this is what they're going to do. It goes back to Lyndon B. Johnson days. We just keep giving them something. They're going to vote for us for 200 years. It's unfortunately, it is what it is. And I look at it as, and that's why education is so important. That's why we have to keep educating people, keep helping them understand. Because you're right. I think, at least to me, whenever he did it is the right time to do it, because, he's gone in and he's begun to ask for the vote. And he's begun to try to at least solicit the vote and say, look, I'm presenting an option that I think is better than the current options that you've been living under for years. So, I think he's at least earned the right to get their attention and to hear and let people hear him out.
Yeah, and that's so true, because for years we had candidates on the Republican side that wouldn't even mention, the minority section of this country. They wouldn't dare go into the communities like Trump has. And I think that's why Trump has gained some street cred in the black neighborhood, because I know a lot of people in the black community who won't come out publicly for Trump, but they have told me that they're going to vote for Trump because they like what they hear. They're tired of living in cities where they can't walk to the store without being shied at, or the kids cannot play, outside in front of the house because of the drug violence. So they get it. Some of these people do get it. And I think that's where the Republicans could have made great strides when Romney was running, or McCain, had they shown some interest in the black community instead of taking it for granted, just like the Democrats have.
Well, we had George Farrell on recently, and he's got the group, the PAC called Black PAC. And he's said that it's really hard for him to get some of these minority candidates to get support from the Republican National Committee because they feel that certain neighborhoods are forever lost to them. And that's the wrong attitude. I don't think people are forever lost to the Republican Party, and it's all the more reason why we should be doing an outreach and educating people about exactly what we stand and why we feel the Republican or conservative message is the better of the two messages. And this is something that is at fault from the very top of the Republican National Committee, all the way down to the state level and the local level. And this is why we need organizations like CURE that goes out and does what our National Committee fails to do. That was leading for you, Derek.
I'm with you 100%. I'm right here, and I appreciate that so much, and that is exactly why we continue to stay on the front lines and to stay engaged. I don't know if I can reiterate enough. Our country, it doesn't take a PhD to see how deeply challenged our country is on so many different fronts. It doesn't take, an enormous thing, and I love what my man just said a second ago, that a lot of people are saying, hey, look, when I go to the ballot box, I might actually vote this way, because there's nobody that lives in a home or lives in a neighborhood that doesn't want to be able to, that feels threatened to go to a local store down the street. They want to live like that. They don't sign up to live like that. They don't sign up to have certain people take over their neighborhoods. And so these are real issues that people are really facing. And I think, as we talked about, from a morality sense, from, our culture and what's going on, all the way from, you go down to family, to life, to marriage, to, our religious liberties and freedoms that we are, really forsaking at this point, all the way to economics and how we are to better ourselves and take responsibility and move forward from a free market enterprise and what we can do. And some people look at those words and they get like, wow, I don't really get all that. Well, it's simple. It's just, how can I create a better place to live? How can we create better communities? And that's why it's important, and I do feel like, this sounds self-serving, but I do feel like organizations like CURE and others that have those voices in the public square that are talking about these issues, that are trying to make them practical and simple for people that live in them, and to really affect communities that are in need, not just talk, but really come alongside of communities and say, hey, look, let's figure out a program we can run that's going to make a difference in your community. Let's try and work on solutions that can be of effect for you and for others that are around. And let's really, to me, I think even just being thought leaders, to be able to talk to community leaders and talk to, folks even in the clergy realm that are talking to people every single week. But, it was interesting. There's a study out there and talking about, even from a church world perspective, about some of these young millennials and others not feeling like the church is relevant. And really weighing in that is that some of the local pastors aren't addressing issues that are going on in society today. So they're hearing them on the news, they're hearing them everywhere else, then they go to church and they don't hear about them at all. And some pastors are saying, hey, look, this is a political issue, I don't want to get involved. And that's not even, I hate to inform people, but those days are long gone. You don't have the freedom to say, well, I'm going to just do a no comment. Your no comment is a comment, and your no comment is a statement. And when you got folks that come along and say, and I think I heard recently, even Bishop T.D. Jakes come along and say, well, Supreme Court is really not a big issue. And I'm thinking, what world do you live in? I mean, I respect you as a bishop, I respect you as a pastor, but you are in a different world. The Supreme Court is a big issue. And if you don't understand that, don't talk about it. Just don't say anything. Talk about what you're really good at talking about, but don't talk about this. Because what you're saying is, I'm going to influence the people that serve alongside of me, serve underneath me, and adhere me, and I'm going to let them be stagnant, ill-informed citizens in our culture and be like that. And I said, no, this is exactly opposite of what we need. We need engaged, informed citizenry that's going to make a difference in our culture to continue to push and continue to move forward.
It's amazing because I relate the story in my own church that when the Supreme Court passed down the decision on the same-sex marriage, our assistant pastor, went forward on his sermon and spoke about supporting our decision that marriage is between a man and woman and criticizing the Supreme Court decision. He did that from the pulpit. And then when he came back to his sermon the following Sunday, he made an apology. He apologized for expressing the correct view of our church. And this is why I think so many pastors are afraid to speak out about politics, because all you need is just one member of the congregation to pick up the phone and chew you out. But we need pastors out there that have the courage to speak the truth. And this is what is lacking, unfortunately. We need people strong like you, strong like Bishop Aubrey Shrine. We need pastors strong like that will talk.
That's right.
From the pulpit and speak the truth. The Black Robe Regiment needs to be resurrected. And when I'm talking about that, I'm not talking about a racial thing. I'm talking about the preachers that stood in the pulpit during the Revolutionary War and talked politics and talked freedom, talked liberty, talked moral values. And this is what is missing. We've got a government that now, if you want to have a tax-exempt status, you've got to be a 501c3 and you can't talk politics. What? Since when does, simply because you're a pastor of a church, you no longer have freedom of speech? That you gave away that constitutional right? That should be challenged.
Well, now you get into a whole other topic around the Lyndon B. Johnson Amendment, which there was just a recent Lyndon B. Johnson Amendment was an amendment that was passed in the heat of the night, late night, by Johnson, and he just tagged it on to this whole other bill that had nothing to do with this amendment at all. And, basically because he was frustrated with some of the preachers that were in the community making political stance and standing up and using their congregations as bully pulpits to influencing them to vote a certain way. And so he's upset. He said, okay, I'm going to pay you back, and pass this amendment in the middle of the night. Nobody's watching. And now puts a silence factor on us and calls it the IRS and saying, your tax-exempt status. I'm going to take your tax-exempt status and do something with it if you don't march in line with what we say as a government and you can't talk to people about politics. Well, that actually is ludicrous and absurd, because not only is it unconstitutional, but it took the breath and really, this is a sly move if you look at it by Johnson, because think about it. Think about the era that he was in. Think about King, and think about the other people that have been around and the social change that was taking place. And now he's automatically telling them you can no longer do this based on your 501c3 tax status. And he's putting a muzzle on the church and a muzzle on some of the most active people around. And unfortunately, while this is the difference in the African American community, it's well known and historically understood that the pastor is the center of that community from years ago, and was really the church was an epicenter of where social change was derived from. Mm-hmm. And that whole concept of morality was really pushed within. Now, the interesting thing is, we call it the Anglo Church today has almost taken that Lyndon B. Johnson amendment and gone to the extreme and saying, I can't utter a thing, even remotely political, and now and lost all courage to some degree, and not everybody, but some. Because I could applaud people like Pastor Jack Hibbs out in Chino Hills, California, which is a phenomenal guy, courageous as can be, bold as a lion, and will stand up any given day and say what he thinks. On the other side, he cares about people. He understands people in his community, all walks of life, and that's never a question. And that's how you have to be. You have to balance it out with your care, compassion, your love for people. That never changes. But whether a person gives you $5, $10, $100, or $1,000, or $10,000, should not squelch your voice at all. And whether the government is going to silence us is a big deal, because I think that's another whole push that we're looking at trying to be engaged in terms of trying to get that Lyndon B. Johnson amendment removed and get people engaged on that and get clergy engaged. Because the other side, it's interesting, ACLU came out not too long ago with a letter that they published and basically trying to tell people that Johnson Amendment really isn't a big thing, and there's a push mounted about trying to get it removed, but that it's really not real, and we need to just let people know. We need to get the word out. Now, why do you need to get the word out? We need to get the word out to tell people it's not real, and get the word out to tell people that this is just something that they shouldn't be get involved in. Isn't that something?
It's just like the Wizard of Oz. Do not pay attention to the man behind the curtain. It's exactly what they're doing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I got to say, we've got a very lively chat room here, so I can't always get to everything that people are saying. But Dave again has another comment which falls into exactly what we're talking about. It says, "How bad is it when the slogan 'What do you have to lose' becomes attractive?" You think about that. When Trump stood there and he said to the African American community, "What do you have to lose?" It should be, "What do you have to gain by voting for me?" Should have been what would make me want to vote for him. But when something like that, "What do we have to lose if you vote for me?" That's sad, isn't it? That's a sad commentary on how far we've sunk.
Oh, it really is. And again, I think they should have had you do some consulting to the Trump campaign on how to state things, because it's much easier and much more, exciting for people to say, "What do you have to gain?" than "What do you have to lose?" Because really, when he said, "What do you have to lose?" it's just a sad thing. It's just, man, that's depressing. That's like, yeah, you're right, because I sure enough don't have nothing on the other side. So I guess, what do I have to lose? But who wants to? That doesn't energize me to go out and vote. That probably energizes me, to be really, really frustrated.
Yeah, you have to wonder about Trump sometimes and what he says, because like I've mentioned to Annie before on the show, he surrounds himself with the best people, but I don't know if he's listening to them, by the comments he makes.
No, that's true.
It is curious as to whether or not he's actually listening, because he does have great people that have been with him and giving him advice. So, they've got him this far, and we've got 2 weeks left. And I'm going to see, I'm predicting there's going to be even far more mud being slid between the two sides than we've ever seen before. It is down to the wire, and the crazies are just starting, honestly, Derek. The crazies are just starting. And he keeps on talking about defunding Obamacare. I mean, Congress, the House, had several chances to defund it, and they failed to do it. They've got the majority, so why can't they defund it? Do you really expect him to completely get rid of Obamacare when he becomes president? Honestly, I think it's too entrenched in our system.
Well, it's either that or we all face skyrocketing premiums if you're going to be in a healthcare system that is enforced upon you, and you're penalized for if you don't have it.
And now they're saying, after the first of the year, it's supposed to be going up 25%. And think about what that does to a family of four. You got kids. How are you going to afford health insurance? You've got a choice. You either get the health insurance or you clothe your family.
Oh, we make choices. No question about it. We all make those choices. And, I'm a dad, so you got to make hard choices in that regards. And that's the case of the matter, because not only do the premiums go up, the deductibles are skyrocketing too. So you're dealing with this inequity in healthcare that, the more you look at it, and common sense people are starting to get it. Okay, now, the plan I had before you implemented this mandatory, I could pay for, it was manageable, the premium wasn't bad, and the deductible was manageable. Now I got, even my insurance agent that I was working with, who is a Democrat, who, said, this plan is terrible, but I'm going to have to take you off your current plan. We're getting rid of that altogether, and we have to do all these new plans under this new administration. And he says, I hate to tell you, but this plan is worse than what you had, and you're going to pay more.
Wow.
This is my conversation with him. Mm-hmm. And I was like, really? I was like, are you serious? He said, yeah. He said, I'll hunt for everything I can do for you, but this is the truth. Now, we looked it up. We did all that, and he hunted. And see, I'm one of those guys that were in the middle of the place. I used to buy my own health insurance to cover my family because of what I did. I led an organization, so I did my own, and we gave people that were employed by me a certain amount of allotment of money to go buy their own as well. We had them hooked up that way. That was an easier system for us than to try to, buy everybody's plan or give everybody things. So this is a way to do it, and we were all treating people fairly and honorably. But it was one of those things too. When it changed, it makes a devastating effect on you as an organizational leader. It's huge because you're hit with immediate increased costs, immediate, and then personally your costs are increasing, and then personally the deductibles are skyrocketing. So you're getting the same coverage for double the deductible price, meaning I have to keep paying out of pocket a whole lot longer before anything is covered. And really begins to go to emergency major medical.
Oh man! And you're just one person.
We have a real issue.
You're one person out of millions. This is being affected. And as they're saying, the stat I heard last night on Fox News is that there are more people without health insurance after Obamacare was enacted than there were before Obamacare. So, in other words, more people across the United States had health insurance, and now less have health insurance. And the exact opposite of what was supposed to happen is happening.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it, this is in my book because I do care about people, and I think, do we need to have a system where people, we're making sure people are getting health insurance? Absolutely, yeah. Let's get a system to make sure people are getting it. Do you mandate that? No, that's not constitutional. You don't force people to do anything, but we need to entice them. We need to tell them, take care of their stuff and take care of their families because we understand when you don't have health care in place, it is one of the leading causes of bankruptcy. But and you got to be able to take care of this thing. And so money doesn't come from thin air, even though there are some that think that they do. But quite simply, it's just one of the things that you have to look at it and say, put together a program that makes sense for common sense people, and the people can afford stuff. When you're trying to also on one end of the stream say we need to get to this minimum wage and force everybody to do it, and then you're skyrocketing health premiums, so the money that they're going to have to pay is astronomical out of that little bit of money that you're trying to increase them. And by the way, that the businesses are going out because they can't sustain some of those numbers. It's talking out of two sides of your mouth. You got to figure out how to do this and do it well.
Yeah, I have a friend of mine who owns a small business here in town, and he asked our congressman, we had a small little town hall meeting, how the heck am I going to provide health insurance to my employees? The only way I can do it, and that's with me taking a cut. I'm not going to be paying myself as much as I did before. I am going to have to fire one or two of my employees in order to provide health insurance for the rest of them. So now you have an increase in unemployment rate. So that the only way this guy can stay in business and protect the remaining employees is to axe two of them. Where is that fair? Where is that going to be beneficial to anyone else? Because now you got two more people that are going to end up on unemployment, on welfare, on Section 8 housing, on food stamps, because they won't be able to be hired by someone else because they can't afford to pay for the health care for them. It is a massive boondoggle. And as Dave wrote in the chat room, is that they want single payer. They planned this to force everyone into a single payer system like Medicare, Medicaid. It was all planned.
Right. You're exactly right. Mm-hmm.
I mean, even Obama said that was his intent. He said, we may not get there in 5 years. It may take 10 years, but eventually we'll get there. And that's what he wants, single-payer system. So I think it's going according to their plan to break down this existing system that we have so they can replace it totally with their single, payer plan, which is another form of socialized medicine.
And it's, I'm shaking my head because of all the onslaughts we've had with this administration from the moment he stepped into the White House to today. I've never seen our country as messed up as it is today. We've got more race riots today than I saw during the civil riots in the 60s and 70s. People are angry, they're frustrated, and where do they go to get rid of this frustration? Who do they turn to? And I think this is all with this election cycle.
The police killings.
Yeah, the police being murdered left and right. No longer respect for the rule of law, no longer respect for the uniform out there to protect and serve. It's sad to say that I'm no longer a police officer because I don't know if I would be able to do it today under these circumstances. You're taking the best of society and telling them, sit down, shut up. And that's what we're getting from this administration. So, Derek, what do? We have no choice. We've got to change the pattern that we've been following. And this is where I think Donald Trump offers hope.
Well, yeah, you're right, and I think it's a combination. It's one or the other, and I think one thing that I probably would say that I disagree with is when he stood up and said, "I alone can fix this," and I said, no, that's not true. But here's the deal: we can fix it together. I'm a consummate person where you have to look at it and say, together we can make a difference is one of my constant taglines that I sign a lot of things with, because I really believe that. And I believe that if we engage as citizens, if we get on the ball, if we elect the right people in the right office, and again, thinking about it past Donald Trump, looking at it up and down the ticket, looking at it, who is the next guy after him, and everything else, if we think about this comprehensively, and then, where do we look at it? Look at even, the other options and saying, wow, if you elect Tim Kaine and Hillary Clinton, what do you get? What are the things, just like you said earlier, I think you mentioned the point of why not? Well, or what do you get? And I think you ask yourself those questions. What do you get? I can guarantee you what you get. And I think those are the things that, you look at it and, in this election, and sometimes you got to make those kind of decisions, not necessarily, hey, I'm in love with whomever's here in front of me, but it's a collaborative of not just the one. You got to change society. You got to keep educating people. You got to keep people engaged as citizens. And then they also got to get out there. They got to go vote. They got to talk about these issues. When it gets to candidates and you're saying, what candidate is going to be best? Well, guess what? I think the reality is everybody knows Donald Trump is not the savior to the world or the savior to America, period. He's not. Yeah. But what he is he is a guy who is a non-politician. He is a guy who is upset the apple cart. He is a guy who is, doing some things that are definitely outside the box and thinking differently. And he's just not playing the normal play card. And so if you look at it, I think we do need somebody who's going to, and he understands the twistedness of the system and the failures and the inaccuracies of the system enough to know that some of these things need to be fixed. And I think as we look forward, we're going to have to look at people up and down the ticket that are coming with solutions, ideas, engagement, perspective, education, all of those things, and it's kind of a both-and process. It's just me. Maybe I'm too optimistic, but I look at it as it's going to take the folks in that local community making sure that they elect the right people for the school board. They also elect the right people for their county executive and their mayors, and then also their local delegates, their senates, their congressional folks, saying whether the House or the Senate, and then all the way up. And because I think a lot of attention has been given to Donald Trump, but I'm also saying, you know what? Don't believe that little sample ballot that they sent you in the mail or that somebody's trying to hand you on your way into the thing, and just not think about things, not engage, not read, and just, go down the line and circle boxes, and you don't even know what they think about it, or, you don't know their background at all. And that's our system is turned into a system where we are hoping and believing that people don't know anything, and therefore will get passed.
Oh, that's true. A lot of people are not looking down the ballot ticket. And for me, in my county, on November 8th, our ballot is going to be 9 pages because there's 3 referendums on there. And after we get off the air, I got to send out an email to all of my Tea Party members to let them know, that there are these 3 referendums, and the ballot is going to be 9 pages long. So we need them to scroll all the way through the whole entire thing. And how many people really want to stand there and read all 9 pages? And this is where it really hurts on the local level, because they're putting up sales taxes here that's going to increase our local sales tax 33%. Now tell me, how is that person living at or below the poverty level going to be able to afford anything within the county if the sales tax increases 33%? That is why you're saying, and I'm saying, that local elections have great consequences, and not paying attention to those ballot questions, not paying attention to who the candidates are locally, will hurt you. So we need people to really take a good look at their ballots. Now, mine alone is 9 pages. I don't know what about anyone else across the nation, but I'm sure there are some that rival it, especially like in New York or California. But local elections mean a lot, because that local guy eventually goes up to the state level. That state guy then goes on to the federal level. And that is who we're propelling into the office of power. They have consequences.
Isn't that the truth, though?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now I got to tell these guys.
I would solely agree.
Yeah. Hello, when you get ready to vote, you've got to wade through 9 pages. But there are important questions. There are important questions. And ask yourself, what is the consequence? If something like this passes, what is it going to do to my daily life? And Sue just sent me a message. She just said, the comment, "I alone can fix this," is old. Trump has since many times said we can fix it together. So I'm glad he modified. Maybe he did listen to someone, or maybe you and I, he heard our voices saying we do this together. You can't do it alone, buddy. It takes we the people. We the people. I mean, this has been a fascinating show, and we were supposed to have candidate Albert Guillory on, and I don't know, he may have gotten tied up, so he is not with us today. So Reverend Derek McCoy, you have stayed with us through the entire show, and we have had a blast. I appreciate you doing that.
Well, I appreciate it. No problem, and I've enjoyed being with you, and it's always good to be with you. I love that you're making people think, and you're bringing the good stuff to the forefront of our minds. So thank you.
Oh, well, thank you for doing all your work, and your website is urbancure.org. People can get involved in the website.
And it's up.
And it's up, yes, because I had tweeted it.
Yeah, sorry about that. There you go.
So if anyone wants to follow me on Twitter, it's Southern_Sense. It's the name of the show with an underscore in between. Very similar to our website, which is southern-sense.com. And no, you do not type out the word hyphen. You put a dash in the middle. I did have someone do that once, Derek. He says, I can't get your website.
Oh, really?
And he put Southern and the word hyphen sense. And he knows who I'm talking about because he's in the chat room. I always got to tease him, bust his chops. But I'm going to be saying a lot of prayers. I got it. They're friends. We can do that. I got to say a lot of prayers are going out that this election on November 8th goes the way that we need it to go and that Trump will become president. That Never Trump crowd is not going to help us. Derek, you do marvelous work. And I was going to ask you, can people get involved on your website and help your organization?
They sure can. They can go to urbancure.org, urbancure.org, and we'd love to have them come in, sign up for some of our updates. Star does a weekly column. We got a lot going on. We've been out there. They can click on various, media things that we've done, but there's things that we're doing, and we're trying to grow and build our National Clergy Network as well. And there'll be, if the information is not on there now, there's information that we have actually charted to get on there, so people can kind of chime in. We just finished our big national summit, National Pastor Summit, so they can go in there and look at even some of those items. But at Star Parker, at Urban Cure on Twitter. They can do Facebook. They can also hit us on the website, again, urbancure.org.
Well, thank you for.
And we're always in D.C., so we always get visitors that come through too. By the way.
Well, I haven't been up that way in quite a while. I like being in the South. I got here as soon as I could. But Derek, thank you.
I understand. Well, I tell you, you got it. Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
Oh, it has been our pleasure. Derek McCoy, check him out at urbancure.org. His organization does great work, Curtis. And we're down to our last few minutes here, getting ready to head out. We're going to be back here. You brought over a guest, Larry Harvey, for next week, and future Florida candidate for governor, Nathan Wilson. Yeah. And then next week on the 1st, we've got George Farrell joining us with Black Pack. So we got great shows lined up. Want to thank everyone that was in the chat room with us. I know it's crazy season. The next 2 weeks are going to be mind-boggling, but we'll slog through it, and come the 9th, we'll have one heck of a party. So, Curtis, that's all for today. So I say...
Well, it was an education, and I'm looking forward to another one this Friday.
Well, until then, I say good night, and God bless, and we'll see you back here on Friday.
If you like your health care plan, you'll be able to keep your health care plan. Health care plan. Health care plan.
How it's gonna work, kid. You're working hard like your parents both did. Everything you earn by breaking your back, we're gonna redistribute when we make our paycheck. Hey, take it down, don't be a jerk, 'cause none deserve it better than the ones who won't work. We're gonna throw away what I owe for this road. Use your hard-earned money just to buy a new boat. Welcome to the place. Welcome to the place of left hypocrisy. It'll be counted for you and me. Oh, welcome to the face. Welcome to the face of the new democracy. Here in the land of the not so free. Party not transgression, service for our own cause. We got a pen and telephone to bypass all your laws. Political courageous will replace the Bill of Rights. Support religious freedom, bless you, praise Jesus Christ. The presence in our pockets doesn't know I'm free. You cannot make a move now that the NSA. Some expect equality, respect, and fair play. The IRS will target those who vote the wrong way. Welcome to the place. Welcome to the place of the left hypocrisy. It'll be counted for you and me. Oh, welcome to the face. Welcome to the face of the new democracy. Here in the land of the not so free.
This is the most transparent administration.
90 seconds.
A smidgen of corruption.
Fact is, we had 4 dead Americans.
What difference at this point does it make?
If you got a business, you didn't build that.
60 seconds.
Election texts those on the page. Attorney general's lying even while on the road. Ignoring dying veterans and border races vote. Hey, shut your mouth, swallow your pride. What does it matter? Our ambassador died. There's nothing you can do about it. Mind will face it. Disagree with anything you label racist. Welcome to the place. Welcome to the place of the left hypocrisy. Welcome to the face.
10 seconds.
Welcome to the face of the new democracy. Here in the land of the not so free.